yours on, on a Zoom call or on a virtual call?
Yeah, actually, that's the one decent thing about this weather is you want to be inside. So, welcome, Dave, today. Thanks for joining us on one of our monthly webinars here. I really appreciate it. And, everybody, just to sort of frame things here, we are, the market down again today. We're in a volatile situation. We're in the last week of the election. Oh, man, crazy, stressful things. COVID's, exploding here. So we thought it'd be a good idea today to talk about fun. This is what Dave does. He talks about fun. So, and then the real thing is, the real tie-in here is, can finance be fun? Most people do not think that way. So I can tell you, there's no way that tax accounting, planning, reviewing expenses, things like that can be that much fun. But what if I told you that understanding your financial plan and really trying to tie that to the why of you as a business owner can be hugely rewarding for you? That, to us, is what fun looks like. So, for example, if your outsourced CFO wanted to help a small business with financial strategy in an embedded, dynamic way, while being cost-effective in bringing the modern CFO to your business, this is how we do it. And if we can do this, is for many, many people across many different business niches, and watch the faces of the owners light up as they finally understand what they have created and the power of the potential in the business they created. That's fun for an owner. That's fun for the employees. So it's really about accepting the good and the bad and allowing outside experts, coaches, CFOs, others, vendors, and so on, to help you steer your business in the right way. The fear of the uncertainty, the cloudiness of the next step made clear, and the feeling of accomplishing a true milestone that is supported by math really can be fun. I'm telling you, I promise it can be fun. This is what we bring to the table. But now, let me introduce you to Dave Raymond. Dave Raymond truly defines the word fun. As the original Phillie Phanatic that I grew up loving to go watch at the vet with my dad, he has since hung up his costume and developed an excellent firm centered around incorporating fun into your business and your life. So, Dave, welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It's great to be here. And your opening really made me smile because you hit on a couple of points that we'll discuss. But some of us that, including myself, because I'm getting too old to remember who I used to be. I just like to say that, yeah, I looked a little bit better. Maybe I was a little bit more fun dressed like that, but I smell so much better than if you had an actual physical hug with the Phanatic. So, you hug me in days when we can. We're going to get back there soon. And you notice that we went to great lengths to order a new jersey for your outsourced CFO so that we
That's great.
kind of pull the two beans together. But, my career, and we'll talk a little bit about it, was unsuspected, and it was a surprise. And if you were to tell me that this is what I would have been doing for a career, I would have thought you were nuts because I was heading in a whole nother direction because of my background. But the interesting thing about your opening, Jeff, that I would start our conversation off with was that the word fun itself, ironically, does more damage to be able to understanding the value of it. And that's what we try to do. We try to get people to think of the word fun away from a clown nose, a bull in the china shop, slapstick humor, just going out and having a beverage with friends. While that certainly can be defined as fun, we're talking about a much more different description and a different power to that word. So when we overlay fun with finance, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to teach that lesson, that fun truly is valuable everywhere.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you. So before we get into the specifics of the finance fund tie-in and the business strategies and so on, which are important, I want to ask you sort of how you grew up in an environment under a Hall of Fame football coach, and as your father, and you were at University of Delaware he was at University of Delaware for 50 years. Tell us a little about how this shaped your life and made your decision patterns as you grew up.
Well, and for those who might not be familiar, my dad was Tubby Raymond, and he was the head football coach for 36 years with the University of Delaware. He first came as the head baseball coach and the backfield coach for the football team, and the heir apparent to Dave Nelson, who was the current head football coach. And at my youngest age, I was born after he came to Newark, Delaware. So I just remember growing up with my hero, wanting to be him, wanting to play football at the University of Delaware with you might not be surprised, with no thoughts of what an education was about. I just wanted to go play football. He taught me 3 really, really important lessons. One was how to throw a curveball. You might not think that was important, but it certainly helped a pitcher like myself, who was not very imposing physically, to appear to be a lot faster. So he made me understand how great the curveball was to make you a better pitcher than you could be on your talent or lack thereof. It also got me involved with one of my most fond relationships of all my years with the Phillies, where I became very close friends with Tug McGraw, because I was left-handed and because I could throw a curveball. That's all he cared about. I was 100% all in as Tug's friend once he knew those 2 things. My dad also taught me how important special teams and being a good kicker could be to allowing me to play in an environment that maybe, again, physically I didn't have the capabilities to thrive. Great high school player, played wide receiver, but I was also the punter and the place kicker on my football team. That got me into a situation where I was picked to be on the Delaware football all-star team. And then that allowed me to be able to have the skill sets that were good enough to play at a Division I or Division II football program. So, and then the third and most important thing he taught me was about showing your value and not discussing your value. Just go out and do it. This is something that's probably really old school for today's generation, but it wasn't about expecting success in terms of what you were going to get. It was go show your value. And if you do that well enough, then you will succeed. Certainly in your business, that's probably one of the major hurdles that you have to do when you bring in a client is to show them your value first. And as you do that, then everything else becomes loyalty and trust and great relationships, which we talked about. So my dad gave me the foundation. He actually also got me the opportunity with the Phillies, which we can talk about too. So it was amazing. And 3 national championships, 14 Lambert Cups, 3 coaches of the year. I mean, he got to be best friends with Bear Bryant at Alabama and Marv Levy. Marv Levy wanted him to come to Buffalo to be his defensive coordinator during the times that they were leading up to appearing in 4 Super Bowls. And he has told me, and I've heard him say, if I got your dad to come here, we would have won some of those Super Bowls. So,
nice.
He's probably a guy that people don't understand how much of a brilliant football mind he was. And he could have gone anywhere and done anything, but he chose to stay in Delaware because he was loyal to Delaware and he didn't want to move his family around.
Oh, wow. Nice. So he was a huge influence on you. Yeah. So would you say that it was him, or like how is it that you got into, and you briefly told me about this story the other day, but how is it that it was Bill Giles, right? How is it that you got to that position with the Phillies?
Well, if you're a fan of Malcolm Gladwell, the book Outliers, I fit.
Yeah.
I fit right into that Outlier book because I had access because my dad knew the Carpenter family who owned the Phillies. Very big supporters of the University of Delaware. So they were not only there's 3 buildings on campus with the name Carpenter. They were fully supportive of Delaware and specifically football. So my dad got to know them, and because of them, as a baseball coach initially, he worked with a lot of the Phillies players to look at them biomechanically, film them in slow motion film back way before it was popular to do so. So they could figure out biomechanically what was going on and feeding that information back to the Phillies. So he told me when he knew I wanted to be a football coach, he said, you're not going to replicate what I did in today's world. You can't stay at the same institution for 50 years. That's over.
Right.
You have to move your family around the country. You're going to get fired at least once before you get to where you can be successful. And you can be successful. So I'll support you if that's what you want to do. But instead, you haven't graduated yet. Let's give up your summer job as of a lifeguard.
Yeah.
And I'll help you. And which was probably the second most amazing job I've had. And, we'll get you a job with the Phillies as an intern. So in 76 and 77, bicentennial All-Star game, 77 was me having the opportunity to recognize that I could have a full-time job. So 2 summers, I was all sold, and I thought I needed to wait until I graduated. And that's when the Phillies said, "Hey, can you stay for all the games in 1978? We have an idea." And so then my dad was absolutely supportive of that, where you wouldn't think that a head football coach, a rough, tough, disciplinarian would enjoy the Phanatic, but he put his football mind and started to give me critiquing. But I think you should have moved over to the left there a little bit more on that routine. So it was funny to see how he converted to a slapstick comedy fan.
Sure. That's awesome. And how long did you do it for? 78 until when was it?
Till 93. So
93.
16 years, but I was with the Phillies for 18 years from an intern on. I like to tell Mitch Williams that every time I see him that he drove me out of the best job I ever have known to become an entrepreneur. So he said, "Well, how'd that work out?" I said, "Great." He goes, "Okay, so I'm responsible for your success."
Oh, geez. And losing the World Series.
Well, he said that's a minor item when he thinks of all the people
right. Nice.
That's what I love about Mitch. He owns it. He owns it.
Good. So getting caught up to today, what is it that you would attribute to being a Phillie fanatic and sort of a mascot in general that makes it such a wonderful thing about sports today?
Well, and it's a super question, but one that I would say the most amazing foundation of what I learned with the Phillies by being the Phanatic is actually powerful for all of us, and that's a little bit about what we're going to talk to. But if you talk specifically about in the early going, I'd get a lot of interviews from sports reporters for the fun and silly piece, and they wanted to know why the Phanatic was successful. And the answer I gave them back then was, well, it's the combination of, the personality that I created was born out of being a Phillies fan, and I understood the insecurities, I understood the wishes and dreams, and I understood the history, and I knew the game, and I understood athletes and umpires and coaches. Mm-hmm. So you match that all up together and say, I wanted to be the heartbeat of those Philadelphia fans with the understanding of, when it could work and when it didn't need to be involved. And that's why it was working. It took me a number of years later to answer the question differently. And I think more to the point that what the Phanatic did was, with his personality and his ability to create these moments, he would go out and seamlessly create an emotional connection with fans very quickly. And what the benefit to the Phillies was, he was selling baseball. He was selling Phillies baseball, but he was doing it by connecting to somebody emotionally. Mm-hmm. So as salespeople, as marketing people, that everyone is trying to get you emotionally connected to the product, right? It feels good. It looks good. It almost doesn't matter so much what it does, but if it feels good and looks good, and that's what the Phanatic did. He felt good. He was warm and cuddly, and he represented the story and the passion of Philadelphia fans. So the idea then is, how can we deconstruct that and discover how we can be the Phanatic in our own lives? And with finance, you asked the question at the beginning: how in the world can finance be fun? After all, accounting and numbers and blah blah blah, and all of the things that go into your world wouldn't be considered fun. Well, I would say, for one, somebody with your brain, it is fun, because you love the numbers, you love to get into it. But the real fun for you is to see the success you've created for the CFO, or the lack thereof of a CFO, for the CEO. You've given them an opportunity to not worry about that and do the other things that they do better than finance. That becomes what the fun comes out of, being able to run the business efficiently and have success. Nothing could be more fun for an entrepreneur or a CEO to look at the bottom line numbers at the end of a quarter and see that you've reached all your goals.
Yes.
And you're having a great year. And it makes you appreciate the down years too, to know that you can do it. So fun is, and now there is a way we can leverage fun into that involvement to make it even more successful, and that we can talk about too. But at the end of the day, mascots taught me, or being the Phanatic taught me, how relatively easy it is to connect to people on an emotional level. Once you do that, they're open, they want to hear from you, they want to talk to you, they want to ask you questions, they want to continue to connect to you.
Sure. Awesome. I love it. So before we get on to the small business and really diving into a little bit of, fun and finance more specifically, I wanted to open it up. If anybody who's on has a question, I had a couple who couldn't make it to the today to the webinar that wanted to ask a question or two. There's one I think I'm going to bring up now that I think is pretty relevant. But so then we'll move on to the next section. And Dave, I'll have one or two questions at the end to surprise you with too. So,
okay.
One of the questions is, and we see this even with people who discuss their businesses with us, we get sometimes personal with them because this pandemic has been very stressful for people. So one of the people that were going to see this, they were saying, well, how does Dave Raymond and Fun, what has he been doing recently to help companies or people, get through this pandemic thought process? How has Fun helped them recently with that? So I thought that was a good question to ask before we get into some more business specifics.
So I'll dovetail the end of the last question and make some sense to that. So
sure.
So the deconstruction, I've looked at, being the Phanatic because I had some really traumatic experiences in my life where actually being the Phanatic saved me. And there's no question in my mind about it. And I recognize how many people are dealing with issues mentally that either they don't discuss or people around them are not aware of. And there are these three levels. There's a level just above hopelessness. There's hopelessness. And then there is rising out of hopelessness and overcoming. Our problem in today's world is that we don't know where, we certainly know where people are sitting when they're up here, but we don't know where they are here, which is dangerous because once they go there, that's where bad decisions are made. So the reason why the Phanatic worked and why we can extrapolate and how it makes it work for us is that distracting people, even for a few minutes, with some piece of humor or activity, intentional activity, will rewire their brain and refresh their perspective. Now, what does that mean? Our brains are wired for a negative input. It's a dinosaur brain. It's been with us for millions of years. It will continue to be a foe against us overcoming because your brain's set up there and wired to keep you safe. We need to turn that off. And one way to turn it off is distract yourself with something that you enjoy doing. So again, it doesn't have to be putting on a clown nose. It could be sitting down, getting quiet and meditating. It could be thinking about the things you're grateful for and taking note of those. Thinking of something good that happened in the most difficult day you've ever had in months. What happened that was good in that day because you can find it. Or it could be, getting together with friends or get on the phone with the person that makes you smile. It's personal to you. So those moments that the Phanatic were creating, you need to build them for yourself in your daily routine. I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to push the pause button and I'm going to step away, especially when you're the most frustrated or stressed. About conflict resolution is to step away, remove yourself from that environment and find the next opportunity that is de-stressed to be able to address that situation with the person you're having a conflict with. That's where powerful fun comes in. Finding those moments to pause, because if you do them daily, it gives you a little dose of refreshment and rewiring, and then you can get back to it. And then the rest of the day is going to beat the hell out of you again. And then you got to push the pause button again. And you need to do it regularly, day in and day out. And that is at the core of what we're teaching is if you do that well, and it's not easy to change your habits, you can build, if you do it well, you can build long-term sustainable happiness, which is what we're all trying to do. We want to get on that path, not just a boost of your mood, because we have all kinds of things that boost our moods that aren't sustainable. So that's really at the core of this. And what's beautiful about it, Jeff, and why I have no problem talking to a finance professional, well, how can we leverage that? So it starts with that tailoring. It starts with that customization for who you are, but maybe more importantly, who your company is and what's the story of your company. Because inside of that story, you'll find the elements that will be fun for you and your employees on a daily basis. But the last thing I'll say, and I'm sorry, you can tell I'm enthused about it.
Yeah, I get it.
The main reason for an employer to give this message to their employees is not necessarily for bottom line success. It's because you're going to do it for your employees to help them as people. Because if you help your employees as people and they don't see any definitive benefit to the business for it, they go, wow, my leader cares about me. They're spending time, effort, and money to teach me something that will help me as a person. But the bottom line business benefit is those people now believe in you, trust you, and want to go and work harder for you because they know that you're out for their best interest and not just for the bottom line benefit of the company.
That's really good. I think that's a perfect segue to the specifics on how fun interacts with small business that we're going to get into next. So if I may start with a question there. We always talk about in our business when we're the value we bring to the clients is exponential, meaning huge value if the client ultimately trusts what we're doing and what we bring to the table. Now, there's both ways on that. You know, the client needs to trust us, but we have to trust the client. So there's both. And if that works well together after a few months, I mean, it becomes fun. Number one, finance does, and the amount of clarity and ways that the business can make the right decisions in real time happens consistently. We see it all the time. It's not day one necessarily, but it does develop over a few months. So my question to you is, how do our CFOs, so for example, trust in our business is so important. How do CFOs interact with their client CEOs? And in doing that, how does fun come into play with that construct? And not just for us, but internal employees. You might have an internal, controller. How can you have fun, build the trust between people?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's complex, but boiling it down to the simple piece of it is that it's about the only way you're going to get trust in a relationship is to be able to have an environment that allows you to build trust. So what's that environment look like? Generally, that can be off hours. So the Phanatic appeared at places when anybody else was celebrating. So most of the time I was free from about 7 o'clock in the morning till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was busy from dawn to dusk on the weekends. I was busy to dawn to dusk during the holidays. So that suggests that people thought of the Phanatic during times when they would celebrate, and he will make it better. But here's the fun thing that happened over those years. I performed at funerals. I performed at a General Electric polymer engineers convention. No kids, only adults in high-stressed meeting situations where young people were trying to get a job with General Electric. Robert and Ethel Kennedy's private residence in Hickory Hill, because Ethel Kennedy wanted the Phanatic to come and officiate the Kennedys' sports contests before dinner because they took them too seriously, and the Phanatic would referee. There's no way they would take it seriously, so no one would be upset with one another before dinner. I kid you not. So the deconstruction of that was you need to create an environment that surprises people.
Okay.
Especially those times when you're trying to meet and connect with folks. So when you come in with your first meeting with a potential new client, it's the offering of a gift, but the gift is born out of the study of the potential client. I've gotten more phone calls and more connections from people to going on LinkedIn, finding out where they graduated from college, and go buying the garden gnome version from their college and send it to them. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is great, because nobody's ever going to spend any money on a garden gnome. But if you do it and you dress it up like their college, the risk you have is they didn't have a good time at college. But I'd say 75 to 80% of us had a good time at college. So doing little things that will create a smile. We start a lot of high level meetings in the boardroom with little silly plush toys. It sounds simple, and it's frightening because people say, "Well, this is a very serious meeting." Well, part of the thing to do is distract them. So everybody takes a pause and a breath, and it gets them set up for a good conversation. So I'll give you the general exercise I want everybody to try. That every time I speak in front of audiences, and I'm talking in front of groups of 2,000 or 12 leaders from Uber Sooner, and this always resonates, and specifically during difficult times. Today, tomorrow, for the next week, every time you run into somebody, either on the phone, in a Zoom call, or physically distanced safely, don't say, "How are you doing?" Because that means, tell me all of your problems, especially when times are tough. Don't do that anymore. Say, "Tell me something good."
No, that's better.
Hey, Jeff, tell me something good. And my children. I mean, and so that conversation always starts off on a positive mindset. It turns off that negative wiring.
Yeah.
It requires you to give them a positive response. And then because of that, the role of a positive conversation continues to go downhill easily. So great way to start a tense meeting. Tell me something good. And then you can have some fun, because there are going to be a person in the room who will say something negative, and you go, no, that's not good. That's not necessarily good. Isn't there something that, and it people laugh, people take a pause. So
no, that's good.
The answer to your question is obviously to study and understand who it is you're going to be meeting for the first time. And because of their story, this is all about storytelling, there is some opportunity for you to create a smile for them that remembers a moment, that allows them to remember a moment in their lives that was really important to them. And maybe not ironically, that's exactly one of the intentional activities that we teach, is that go to a moment of joy in your life and remember it. That's where we talked about this the other day. That's where money can buy you happiness. If you're investing in great memories, it's worth every penny, because they go away, they're done, and then they're there for you to recall them. So
yeah, if I can get a little personal there, Dave, you said that to me the other day. We were chatting, and I am a huge believer in travel and taking my family to different. Now, obviously, now is a little trouble, but once this subsides, big believer in that, and not buying cars and things like that. I mean, that's just the way I am. I mean, everybody has their own thing, but I believe that experience is endless. So.
Not to interrupt, but Dan Gilbert, who is a tremendous psychologist and done great things in the Chicago market, and teaching and writing, and he says about investing in experience. He said that that beautiful car that you've been waiting for 4 years to be able to afford, you buy it. It doesn't have the good sense to go away. It will stay there until it disappoints you.
Really true.
Where your vacation, your marvelous vacation that you've been planning for 10 years, and my wife and I just went away up in upstate New York. You can still travel safely for our 25-year anniversary. Right. And then it ended. We had the greatest time. And over the last couple of days, we're just reflecting on that time, and that will continue to be there. It never goes away. And it only gets better, because you make things up. Suddenly the walk that we took to the pinnacle was a 5-hour baton death march to see this beautiful thing, when really it only took us an hour, and it was a lot of fun, and it was physically taxing but not tough. So you just regale on those tales, and over time they get better and better, and they make you happier and happier above all negative odds that are going on. Those memories, boom, they're there for you. And I know that you do this, you should be crafting environments when you're meeting with potential new customers, and as the relationship grows, to find opportunities to distract people with something pleasant, funny, interactive, engaging. Fun does not mean it's silly. It can be, but it does not mean that that's what it always is. It's fun. You understand the fun things in our life, which are moments for us to enjoy. So craft those. Can you imagine that your first meeting with a customer who you do a great job, and they end up being a 10-year customer, that you'll always remember that first meeting because you did something that creates a memory that they recall, and are a fond part of their business memory was meeting you and your company before you got started.
You brought up a memory that I could speak to, that I don't know if it qualifies as fun, but it would to this owner and to me. When we first met the owner, I said, "What's your why?" what do you want to do with your business? He said, in 5 years, I want to sell it for $6 million. That's where I want to be in 5 years. I want to get to the point where I can sell it. Oh, excuse me, not sell it, but get it to 6 million in revenue and sell it. I said, I love it. So put it on the board. So he wrote it on his whiteboard. To me, that was fun. To him, that was fun. I was first interacting with him. That was like our connection. He wrote it in the corner of his whiteboard and he kept it there. Year and a half ago, he hit 6 million and he made it. So it was about 5 years.
And it's a great interpretation of fun, because all of the training that we do, we have folks for personal development come to us, and we do a personal power fund plan training, which is about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what they want to invest in. At the end, got this plan that they can follow and move forward. They have their own whiteboard agenda on how to build sustainable happiness. And then it's up to them. What you did in that moment was, the individuality of all these plans, because every person, you love to skydive. I'm scared to death of heights. The things that excite us are going to be different. So that's exactly what we talked about. With your potential customer, you got to know who they were first. You knew what floated their boat, and you know what, I'm going to ask them what is the biggest level of success that they could expect out of their business, because that they're enthralled with their business. They're excited about their business, and you zeroed right in on it. And now he has, and I guarantee you, he remembers that time.
Oh,
and he probably thanks you for that.
No question about it. And he's a friend to this day. So, so let's get a little more specific, because those are great points. The next question I have for you is that small businesses and CEOs like myself, we struggle to incorporate fun into the workplace. But really the question is, can you do that and increase productivity? So, because as a finance guy, that's what we're looking for our clients. So that's where the struggle is. What are your thoughts?
Well, traditionally you hear, if you can engage your employee and you can get them to know that you care about them, productivity will increase. If you remember the very first Undercover Boss, it happened right after the Super Bowl. It had to be 10 years ago. And it was a waste management company. And he, of course, disguised himself, and he went right down to the frontline workers, the people that were cleaning the portable potties. And the one guy that he worked with for a day was mentioning how sometimes you get splattered. He goes, but that's one little tiny wound in my fight against making all of these porta potties presentable, clean, and so that anybody would be happy to go in there and use them. So then he reveals that he's done this, and the scroll on the bottom was, now Waste Management's a global company, and they said that productivity went up 25% solely because they believed that their leader cared about them. Okay, so, but let's talk about the specifics of what that might be with another illustration. Mm-hmm. It needs to be authentic, so it has to be about your story. It has to be everything that you do with your employees should be telling a story of who the company is, why they're important to the company, and where they're going to go together. So you always put that storytelling is so important to get that down so that the storytelling connects emotionally to people. So, and then it's authentic to you doing business. So it's one thing to have a team builder to come in and have a relay race and get some fun things to do and distract. That's good. But how could we create fun that would actually be productive in terms of the results for the company on a daily basis? Well, there was about 2008, when the economy was really bad, the cover of Inc. magazine was declaring that fun was a potential tool against a downturn. Mm-hmm. This one company had contiguous space between the office and the warehouse. In other words, there was no defining barrier between their office space and the warehouse, mostly because the people that were working at their desks were also in the warehouse working, and they were constantly going to and fro. Whether it was to get something off the shelf, get a SKU number, they didn't have a great automated system. It was something that they were moving towards. So the people were constantly getting up and moving. Well, one guy who had to do more of that than the rest went to the leader and said, hey, look, as a joke almost, he said, I'm bringing in my scooter because it's going to save me time. I can scoot on the Razor scooter faster to get to the area and get back. I'll save time. And the leader says, have at it. Whatever you want to do. I'm all about it. Enjoy yourself. So this guy does it. The rest of the organization starts seeing it and they go, wait, hey, where's my scooter? And so they said, well, you can get a scooter, bring your scooter in. So he started financing some of the scooters. And what came out of that was an actual Olympic scooter contest.
Oh my gosh.
With that company at the end of the quarter. And they would give out recognition and awards, and they had a blast with it. And it was all born out of one employee suggesting a kind of a weird idea. And the CEO was confident enough to say, yeah, have at it. Be safe, wear a helmet, go do what you need to do, knock yourself out, not, figuratively, not literally.
Yeah.
And they had a blast. And he recounted that they've never had a better engaged group because they actually made something that was productive and fun at the same time. So that's a grand slam, not a home run. You can do it in other ways, but if you start with your story and what your employees are required to do on a day-to-day basis, and you can mix in fun to actually help them do their job better at the same time, now you've made their job fun, not just time like the fish philosophy was distract from the fishmongers at Pike Place Fish Market was a horrible job. So they were talking about mentally and taking a pause to get away from their work. So imagine if you could actually make the work fun, which is what they ultimately did. They started throwing and catching the fish, and it became their distraction. So the fish philosophy, they were way ahead of their time, and they knew how to make their job productive, and they drove more revenue because people came to watch them throw the fish at 5 o'clock in the morning.
That's fun.
I'd like to figure out a way to get the Phillies fans when we get back to it and can come in. Like, how do we get them to show up early and wait in line to get into a ball game? I guess win.
Yeah, or free beer.
Yeah, there you go. That's fun.
Totally. So one of the things that is sort of our last question on some of the business specific fun ideas is enlightened leadership. So I think you had mentioned to me there was a tie-in there to your experience with the Phillie organization. I think people would like to hear that, but an enlightened leader is really critical in particular for entrepreneur companies to succeed. Because I see it in my business as well. You have to rally the troops. They have to believe, like you said, you're authentic. You have to be enlightened. You have to be on top of the trends. You have to incorporate fun. So if you could speak a little bit of that, it'd be helpful.
I was lucky and blessed. And of course, if you know my background, lucky and blessed on many fronts. One of my blessings was to have wonderful, enlightened leaders at the Phillies without recognizing what that was. It wasn't until I moved out and started working for other Major League Baseball teams to help them while I was the Phanatic to realize how different the structure of their organization was and how the organization leaders taught frontline workers. So Bill Giles was amazing. He's the one that told me, when I got the costume for it was the day that I was going to go out in front of the Philadelphia fans for the first time was the first day I tried that costume on. No training, no idea what the heck we were doing, no plan. And I go to Mr. Giles and said, what do you want me to do? And he said, I just need you to go have fun, Dave. That's it. And then when I went tearing out of his office, excited because I figured I can do that. I'm a college kid. He yelled at me, G-rated fun, Dave, G-rated fun. So, he designed that box. So I didn't disappoint him. But there were occasional times when maybe I pushed the edge. And in this particular case, if anybody remembers the Phanatic's fifth inning routine that he still does today, 42 years later, I would come out on the four-wheeler in front of whatever team. I enjoyed doing it with the Mets and the Dodgers the most. I'd jump off the bike, and in a little tiny trunk, I'd open up the trunk in the bike, and I'd pull out one of the plastic novelty helmets, and I'd put it down on the ground, and I'd run and grab one of the ground crew's big lead tampers that were meant to tamp the mound down, and I would play a song that was related to their city. So it was New York, New York, Frank Sinatra, and at the right moment, I'd smash the helmet to New York, New York, and the fans would go crazy. Well, Bill calls me in and says, listen, I want to know why you're doing that. I got a bunch of letters from this teacher. There's 10 now, back in the day when we wrote letters. I'm aging myself. He said, he's complaining, saying that routine is making the Phanatic look violent. What do you think we should do about it? I went, I'll stop it, Mr. Giles. I'll never do it again. No. David, I want to know, why are you doing it? And I said, because the fans love it. He goes, okay, at tonight's game, I want you to do it again. I know you did it last night, but do it again tonight. And I'm going to sit out in the stands. I'm like, so I had extra pressure. I was, making sure I was hitting my cues, making sure I cleaned up the trash so it didn't stay on the field. I tried, because, oh my gosh, my boss is watching me. And the next day he called me and said, you're right. Fans love it. I don't want you to stop doing it. But now listen to the two things he told me I needed to do. He goes, you get to pick two teams that you do that routine for. And so, there were, 12, 15 teams, 16 teams that would come in, do the course of a season for homestands. You can only pick two. You do that. The others, I want you to come up with something new and creative and different that's just as much fun. Okay, cool. Great. Now, what I'm left with at the end of this is a lot of work to do, but that's good. So then, and he goes now, and he flips the letters on the table, and they scatter across and slide right up to my chest as I'm sitting down. He goes, you have to call that teacher and tell them why we are still doing that routine.
Yeah.
So I called the guy, and he's like, what? What, you're the guy in the costume? And I go, yeah. And he goes, I didn't mean in the second paragraph that line that I said. So now he's apologizing for being a little too aggressive. He just wanted somebody to respond. That's all people want when they complain. They want somebody to know that they've said something and they've heard it. And sure. I explained to him what we were doing and why we didn't think it was violent. And we kind of agreed to disagree. But I said, but the good news is I'm only allowed to do it with two teams. So it's going to go from, almost 16 multiplied by 2, so you've got 30 plus times. I'm going to do it down to about 5 or 6 for the year. So he appreciated that somebody was listening to me, and it pushed me to come up with better ideas so that I could have a diverse set of routines, which of course led to the fight with Tommy Lasorda because I got really good at that. So he, that's amazing leadership. It's, one of the books I'm contemplating, wrote The Power of Fun, which is the story of what the Phanatic taught me about powerful fun. But I think I've got a great book about leadership because of the way from the owners, from the Carpenter family, all the way down to my boss, Frank Sullivan, and Larry Shank. They just understood how to build a family. And
they were enlightened in that.
This is before human resources. Now, it's a little bit more difficult to play things a little bit loosey-goosey, which I think in general the sports organizations have a tendency to be. But there was no malfeasance. People were not making those types of mistakes because they knew they were being trusted and they didn't want to betray that trust.
Sure. So they were enlightened leaders in that sense, in helping you, succeed. And you brought up something there that's really important, actually, that I want to touch on, that we deal with people all the time, is as an enlightened leader and allowing your employees or other people you work with, vendors and so on, to remain creative really helps you with your business objectives. That's an important thing we do with clients. So we will sit there and we're not just doing reporting. That doesn't mean anything. Financial reporting doesn't mean anything. We'll sit there and we'll do iterations on things looking forward, and we'll go, what do you think? Is this something that could be feasible? If this were to be feasible, how would you approach it? How would you get the funding to do it? How would you allocate your capital to achieve that milestone you wanted to do? Now we get creative thinking, not just from the owner, but we need the controller internal who we're supporting, or other people, the VP of sales. Everybody has to think very creatively, and we bring that out in people. So those are the types of clients that we like to work with, who really go back and forth with us on the creativity construct. So.
I think that in terms of creativity and innovation, fun plays an enormous role because, again, it's about creating a space that is designed to encourage that type of thought.
Okay, that's
and
great.
You're discussing reframing. Well, creativity is all about reframing. Here's what we do now. What if we did it this way?
Yeah.
And even if that is just unable to occur, the reframing of that actually makes an opportunity for you to then come together with something that really works well. So, but in and of itself, innovation, creativity happens much more effectively when you understand the space that you need to create. And I'm talking both a physical environment, but also an emotional environment. So, food, drink, music, other engagement techniques for the all five senses, and you design it all to get people relaxed and enjoy themselves, and say, and then follow. There are some specific structures to creativity, and one is everybody gets to brain dump with no critique whatsoever.
Right.
So you always have the man or the woman that will purposely say something that is really stupid in terms of creative flow, just to get people to laugh.
Oh, really?
So you allow them to do that.
That's great.
Because that type of influence will make people laugh. And what's funny is sometimes the most ridiculous idea is the one that has the germ of the idea that moves them into the reframe. So that's where fun plays a vital role. One is just to say, we got to be creative. Well, set the creative time. When are we going to do that? And what does that space look like? And what are we doing during that time? And then we promise, and this is something I think that you probably already do, you promise everybody that's involved, we're going to ship something. We're going to complete it. So when we're done, this isn't just, air that we're taking up. We're going to come up with an idea and we're using it, and we're going to see if it works. Sure. Then you have a little bit more excitement about those meetings, because you could come up with an idea that makes your company better, and you get the recognition for doing that work.
I like it. I like it a lot. This is phenomenal, Dave. I mean, we can't forget about fun in our lives, and we can't forget about it in business either. And it's real important in this time frame. So before we generally close, which we're getting towards the end of our time today, is I wanted you to tell us a little bit about where you're going next. So the power of fun, what are you doing online so people can get information about that? And what does that look like? So,
well, I'm going to give everybody a zero cost, and I'll lead up to where you can invest in fun with us too. And you all go to the same place, DaveRaymondSpeaks.com. You have an ability to connect with me and just ask a question. You can sign up for our newsletter, and this is what I joke about. Everybody has a newsletter. Everybody wrote a book, blah, blah, blah. But this newsletter is once a month, and it does exactly what we're doing here today. It talks about the tips and tricks and hacks to be able to build sustainable happiness for you and for business. And all of those newsletters, you have the ability to specifically tell me something that you were thinking about based on what we talked about. So I have some great interactivity, and that's a growing list. About 5,000 people are on that list now, and that's growing every day. So go to DaveRaymondSpeaks.com, join the newsletter. Would really appreciate the support for the book. It's the only place that you can buy my book. It's my one-man protest against Amazon growing too big. But not only can you buy the book there, you can get one of our lapel pins, which, by the way, I guess wouldn't, the humor would not fall short in this, that this is what people give the most value for. Look, I don't care what you do, Dave, come and speak to our group. I just want one of the pins.
Of course.
So you can write for your request to get the book from me to personalize it, and then you get a pin for free for asking that. So the book's another. I just believe so wholeheartedly in this message, Jeff, and that's why I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk to some of the folks that are connected to you. And my public speaking and the keynotes that I'm doing, both virtually and live someday. By the way, we do have 3 or 4 bookings in the early part of 2021 that we're still confident will go through.
Oh, awesome.
That's what I'm living right now. I believe all the work I did as a Phanatic and going through my life challenges, which the book tells you those stories and how I overcame them, and how you can too in the most difficult times, are in. I love delivering that message because I know it's powerful. If you talk to anybody who speaks or teaches, they have, and I guess everybody who's a professional, you have a negative critic in your head. As people tell you, yes, this is great, I believe it. You got this negative critic telling you, nah, it's really not as important as you think it is. And so I'm in service to the audience to the point where I'm listening. They need to tell me what they think. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of the last 2 years, and specifically now during the most difficult challenge our world has faced, is the feedback I'm getting, that, just to tell me something good. I hear that so consistently.
I like that a lot.
Handwritten letter from a coach to say, I'm using it with all my student athletes, and they love it. They're constantly thinking about how they're going to answer that question next, so there's no delay. So that's what I love doing. So you can bring me in virtually to talk to your groups, and recently had a lot of traction, colleges and universities and the financial world, whether it's business development or just communicating this message. And that comes at a lower cost than live events do, which is some of the beauty of what we're dealing with now. But the investment in the message, and that, if you go to DaveRaymondSpeaks.com, all the information's there. It's easy to get in touch with us so that we can see how we can customize it to you, all the way down to this personal power fund plan training that we start always with a webinar, get people interested, and then pull them in as a student for the course of 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what their needs are. So I love doing it, Jeff, and I hope people will know how much I appreciate the love and affection I've received from, being the original Phanatic, and that continues every single day. So it's only appropriate that this is what I'm talking about, is trying to give some of this love back that all that affection taught me all these lessons.
Thank you, Dave. This is awesome. Thank you so much. And I love your tell me something good. I am going to incorporate that for sure in the way I do business now, more and more. I mean, my kids come home from school at dinner. We say, tell us something good that happened today, not how was school, because otherwise they go, school was good. So it's a great way that we interact with our kids. I'm going to do it more in business. Thank you for that.
You'll enjoy that. That'll be fun for you and your wife. And the conversation that occurs after that is just that's where the priceless part of it comes.
It is. It's great every night that we do it. It's totally true. So I got one last question for you before we end. And again, thank you for coming today. So you were mascot for many years for the Phillies. So what other team's mascot did you despise?
Well, listen, it was a rivalry. So I got to say that the first thing that pops in mind is the San Diego Chicken.
Nice. Chicken.
I got to know Ted Giannoulis, who has always been the Chicken, and we've had our own personal difficulties, but we appreciated each other's skill sets, and I learned a lot from the Chicken. And frankly, the Phanatic would not have been born if it weren't for the Chicken, because one of our executives, Denny Lehman, saw the Chicken live in the very early going of his career and came back and told Bill Giles, we need to do our version of that. So
nice.
So he was the biggest rival. I'm trying to think of the ones. The characters that I despise are the ones where the performer has no desire to be in it. They're just there to get into the game for free. So,
oh, really?
So you see them sitting underneath the basket like this.
Oh,
because these are tickets that you can't buy anywhere. So Division I college basketball is where sometimes I can see that a student performer has mailed it in. And I actually have video of that to show my students when I'm teaching performance, to say, if you are not in this to entertain, then get the heck out of it. Because, one of the best things that you can say that I know you're working hard is, I ask you what happened in the game. You say, I don't know. I was working too hard. So those are the characters I despise, who are somebody that's just getting in it to get access to a game, and they don't care about becoming a professional doing it.
Great. So originally the Chicken. I love it.
Sorry. I love it. He was funny.
No, it's fine. I love it. So thank you again for coming on, Dave. This has been great. We got all your information. I will circle around with you, and on to the next thing.
Yeah, I'll look forward to talk to you more. This has been really great for me too. It's always lessons that I pull from all of these. So thanks for people giving us some time. I hope they enjoyed it, and we'll see you at DaveRaymondSpeaks.com. And you got to go get your outsourced CFO, because I can't add. I always had somebody else do it. Okay, so all the accounting, all the stuff that I got D's in college, it doesn't matter. You got to go get somebody like Jeff, like you're over here, like Jeff, that can do it for you. Then you can all smile along the way to the bank.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
All right.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Take care now.
Thank you, David.
Bye, everybody.